Hello everybody, this is Roland with Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. Released in Japan in December of '89 and North America in September of the following year. The version we're playing today is actually the one compiled in the Anniversary Collection, which I personally recommend. If you're interested in checking this game out, or if you haven't played it in a long time and haven't tried out this version, as you can see here, I messed around with a couple of the settings, the display settings, real quick. You can change the background and everything. But primarily the main couple of reasons why I like this version is really for the ease of access, and then also the handful of extra features like that, border that you get, or being able to turn on the pixel perfect mode, which some people might prefer. And then kind of the biggest help for me personally was the save feature, where you could just save at any time and reload that save. These collection series that they've done for Castlevania have been really nice about that. It's a really good feature. I think it helps save a lot of time, so you don't have to redo levels or waste time backtracking too much in some of the other games. With this one, I mostly use it when I'm in some kind of trouble, and maybe I'm low health or something, and I struggle a little bit on a level. It just saves me from having to go back and redo the entire level just to save time, because it's I try to be as efficient with my time as possible, especially with my gaming time, because I don't get enough of it. But if you're not a fan of using those kinds of features, then that's totally cool. That's fine. I understand. For me personally, it was just a choice that helped make my experience a lot easier and a lot more fluid. And as you can see by now, this entry in the franchise was kind of a return to form to what the first game is. We haven't got there in the chronological playthrough yet, but the difference between Castlevania 2 from Castlevania 1 is pretty noticeable in terms of how that game feels and what kind of game it is. And then this game kind of goes back to the format of the previous, or of the first game in the series, which is really cool. It's it's a different type of game. I've noticed there are kind of two types of Castlevania games in a way. There's like the ones like this that feel what I call a little tankier, a little bit slower, despite still needing the precision, which I clearly don't have. But the kind of more sluggish Belmont games versus the ones like Symphony of the Night or Harmony of Despair, where you just you have quite a lot of mobility and stuff like that. Some interesting chronological notes about this one. For those of you who are watching on the YouTube playlist with all of the Castlevania games that we've been playing chronologically, this one is set around 400 years after Lament of Innocence, the last game in the playlist, which, if you haven't watched that playthrough, I really enjoyed that game. But, a part of me wonders what the Belmonts were up to during that time between Lament of Innocence and this game. I do wonder what kind of stories might have happened in that time. So, if any of you know anything about that time period, with the Castlevania franchise, just let me know in the comments below. Which reminds me also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you like the content. I would very much appreciate you giving the support and sharing this to anyone if you enjoy it. And this is something that I would really love to be able to do as close to full-time as I possibly can, if not absolutely full-time, is to make videos for you all. I've been enjoying it a lot, but I just don't always have the freest of schedules to do this kind of thing, so I just have to kind of take it as it comes. As you notice here, one of the aspects of this game is that Trevor Belmont, the main Belmont in this game, has some friends that help him out through this game. In this instance, we're playing Alucard, which is the only guest character, I guess you would call it, that I used in this playthrough. I just kind of wanted to check him out. We'll talk a little bit more about my personal experiences with this game, but I am not as familiar with this entry in the franchise as I am with some of the others. I kind of just like Alucard as a character, so I just wanted to give him a shot, and he turned out to be really fun. I don't know if he's the best guest character that you can bring along, or if there is even one singular best character. Who's your favorite? Let me know. Let me know in the comments on that one. But I did enjoy Alucard here, and we switch back and forth here and there, when it's necessary. But as for Trevor Belmont in this particular entry, I believe Trevor's been ostracized by the church, maybe the whole community at large, and basically is eventually asked to take down Dracula, as Dracula is on his way back, trying to return and take over and wreak havoc and all the Dracula things that he likes to do, Trevor comes in and he's a total badass, and there's a lot of this story that is delved into a lot more with the Netflix animated series, which I highly recommend if you haven't checked it out. I know there's probably quite a lot of you who are watching this who maybe got introduced to the franchise through that show, whereas some others of you may have been longtime fans before that show. But it's a really good series, I think, and that first main series that they did initially is an adaptation of Trevor's story. You'll also notice the next game in the timeline that we'll see coming up very soon, Curse of Darkness, is it's also got some connections to the animated series, right? You get a couple of those characters. Trevor comes back, spoilers, and there's a few more things in there that were adapted for the show that are pretty cool in that game in particular. And as you'll notice, when we do get to that playthrough, you'll notice I really enjoyed that game. That Curse of Darkness was a lot of fun. So, I was going to talk a little bit about my kind of personal history and experience with this game, as is my plan to do with as many of these games in this series as I can. And in general, it's just something I kind of like to share with you all. This game I never really got to play back in the day. My kind of earliest memories of Castlevania were mostly regarding Super Castlevania 4 for the Super Nintendo, right? Super Nintendo being like one of the first, if not the first, consoles that I remember having in the house when I was a very small child. So I kind of missed out on the first couple. We'll talk a little bit about Castlevania 2 when we get to that game in the playthrough series, but that game I had a little bit more familiarity with than this one by the time I got around to it. I had played Castlevania 2 beforehand, before getting to this series, and I think it's a really special game. But this one I just completely missed out on for many years. So, you know, I don't know much about any possible differences between the original versions and this version, the Anniversary Collection Edition. But like I said earlier, I do quite like this version, you know. If I ever come back and replay it, this will definitely be the version that I use. Again, it's just so much easier to access, to you know, get your hands on. It's fairly cheap usually on a sale, and it's available in pretty much everything that I have access to, you know, and that most people seem to have access to. It's just, you know, easily available. It's a good release, I think. All these collections that they've come out with for the Castlevania games have been, from my experience and my opinions, have been really well done, you know. But yeah, I kind of had vague recollections, hearing, you know, from friends here and there about this game, growing up, you know. I maybe had a couple of friends who had played it, and they'd all talk about, you know, just how difficult it is, right? Or at least how difficult it was back then, you know, compared to other games that were out during that time. And again, you know, I didn't really experience that. Most of my platformer time as in that time frame was spent with, you know, like Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo. I had played a couple of Mario games here and there. Mostly, I think, Super Mario Brothers 3, potentially, or one of the Mario World games. I don't really know. But yeah, I remember having a few friends who would talk mostly fondly about how much of a challenge this game is. And, you know, there's clearly a certain level of precision that is required to get to do, you know, certain things in this game, to be able to make it through certain levels and sections, right? We'll kind of probably bring that back up later whenever we get to the death fight. For those of you who know, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. That fight was quite difficult for me, because I just don't have that level of precision a lot of times, especially with this game. I just did not seem to have quite as deft a control as I wanted to. With more time, yeah, I know I could have gotten better and given you a more, you know, perfect, so to speak, playthrough, but that's not what I'm all about, you know. Like, I'm not here to give you a no-hit run or anything like that. I'm here to just play the game and have fun, and share a little bit of my thoughts on the game with you all, and, you know, see if any conversation gets started up from it. But yeah, this game, I had a lot of fun playing through it. There were a few sections where I had to pause and just take a break and get a drink of water, and you know, just give it a moment to think about things, and you know, and just take my time and whatnot. And this boss right here was really cool because, as you can tell, he's very weak to the fire, the holy water, I'm sorry. As you can see, he's very weak to the holy water, and I can tell you for sure that wasn't my first attempt at that boss, but it was like my second or third, and I had no clue. I didn't know what I was getting in for with that tactic. I was not expecting it to die that quick. But needless to say, it got a good laugh from me. And as you noticed, after that boss fight, you encounter one of the other mechanics of this game, which is the branching paths aspect to it. So after you beat a boss, you finish a zone. For those of you who don't know, you end up getting a like a branching path. You either go up or down to determine which path you're going to take, and I'm not too familiar with a whole lot of the changes between, you know, what the experience is like for one path or another. Took a good shortcut there. I was pretty proud of myself for that one. But you know, it made for an interesting playthrough experience for me. You know, let me know in the comments if there was any path that I took that was not the ideal path usually, or you know, let me know if you have a different path that you prefer to take. But you know, I had a lot of fun with the directions that I took on this, and despite some of the struggles that came about potentially because of my choices, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and I think you know, I think that branching paths idea is pretty cool. You know, it gives you one extra reason to come back and replay the game, I think, you know, because you didn't get to see the whole game. There are some levels that I'm sure, zones or something that I might have missed because I took a path or another, which is pretty cool, you know. Again, if I do come back and play this game, it's something I'll keep an eye out on. Trying to see what other paths, try to take some different paths next time, you know. But yeah, this is a pretty cool idea. I like that. This is probably one of the earliest examples in gaming history that does that kind of thing, right? I think, you know, that has like that level of, you know, potential alternate playthrough experience, right? Because you end up with just a whole different experience, right? Maybe you get a different guest character to play with, right? Whatever it may be. Now these pendulums, they were quite the pain for me in some cases on this game, just because it doesn't quite line up sometimes where I'm jumping. You know, I don't quite line it up exactly where I want it to be. But anyway, you know, yeah, I think the branching paths thing is a pretty cool idea. I think that's, you know, potentially the spiritual precursor to what turned out to be, you know, the aspect that helped create the Metroidvania genre or subgenre. Which is the like backtracking and trying to fill out the map, and like, oh, I don't have this item, so I'm gonna have to come back here later, and you know, when I do have the item, then that way I can get into this door or break this wall or whatever it may be, you know, whatever the case may be. So you know, you have those kind of elements already stirring up within the franchise, which I think is really cool. You know, the first two games didn't quite have, I mean, the second one did have some amount of backtracking, but you know, it wasn't quite the Metroidvania that we know of when we think of, like, you know, Symphony of the Night or any of the Game Boy Advance titles or DS titles, right? Those ones that really fit within the Metroidvania style. And now we're on to the third zone of this playthrough, which was kind of immediately pretty difficult for me. These owls are, I don't know what it is. You stick around long enough, around, you know, either the YouTube or the Twitch channels, and you'll learn that flying enemies are just my weakness, apparently. I don't know what it is. They just are so often a problem for me. Not sure. But yeah, this level was a decent challenge. You know, I do like the design of it. This is one of the, in my opinion, one of the better visually designed levels. All these levels in this game are really nice in terms of layout, right? The actual level design, in terms of like how they're laid out, is consistently really nice in this game. I will give it that. I did enjoy all of those, but this one, in terms of like the visual aesthetic that we're looking at, it is really cool. Like when I think of this game, when I am gonna think back on this playthrough going forward, it's probably this level is gonna be one of the more immediate ones that I think of, right? Just because, I mean, this right here, this just the stairway and, you know, the kind of combination of colors really pop. You know, it's visually very pleasing to me. I quite like it. So I'm going to let some of the gameplay play out here for you. I tried to cut as many of the reloads as possible as I could, just for the sake of time and efficiency on the video, right? So you don't have to consistently watch me restart, but that does also mean that you're going to see me save quite often, because I would push forward for a while and explore and then get my ass handed to me and not have saved for quite a while. So there were times where I just needed to save for the sake of making my experience a little bit smoother. And here we continue. You know, this is technically the next zone, but visually is very similar right now to the previous zone, which is probably another reason why that last zone sticks out to me so much. But anyway, I'm going to let the game play out a little bit here, and I will be right back. And here we are coming up on the next boss. This one is the Cyclops, which was a pretty fun little boss. I tried to use the holy water as much as possible. It took me a little bit of time to get the timing down for matching where he was going to be with where the holy water would get thrown. But yeah, I did a pretty good job of it, I think. You know, it was certainly a lot easier this way. A little bit cheesy, but I am personally all in favor of cheesing boss fights if I can. Just because I think it's hilarious when you watch a boss's health go down really quickly. You know, either using cheesy strats or even speedrun strats sometimes here and there, you know, just to get a clear... you know, this one was pretty easy with the holy water. I think I use the holy water throughout most of the game, if not the whole game. It's really good in this one. And as you'll see later, I didn't know that the axe would be as good as it is in the final fight. I didn't end up using it in the final fight. But I learned a little too late that it's seems to be a preferred option in the final fight over the holy water and stuff like that, but oh well, you know, you live and you learn, right? So anyway, yeah, the Cyclops fight was pretty fun. I enjoyed just tossing holy water there and trying to get the timing down. It was a pretty good time. And now here we are in the next stage, the ship, which is pretty cool. This is another level that just looks, you know, really interesting, visually interesting. But it doesn't, to me personally, it doesn't quite stick out as much as the previous zone with the greenery and everything. I don't know, thinking back on this playthrough, I don't remember enough about this zone to say that it's, you know, as good as the last zone, but it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just not as memorable for me personally. And here's another little fight. This isn't a boss fight, but here's another fight where the holy water comes in very handy. I loved this. Just watching the health bar deplete so quick. That was so cool. Okay. Please be recording this time. This boss was quite a lot of fun. It's really hilarious to just watch the mummies disappear on spawn, basically, almost immediately. That was hilarious to me, right? And then having to refight the Cyclops was pretty cool, and actually like having to do the fight instead of sort of cheesing it with holy water and staying where I was. Doing the actual fight, you know, was not too bad. This is a pretty easy fight, and you know, I played it a little bit safe just to try to not take too many hits. So, you know, I definitely could have finished this fight a little bit quicker, and you know, had I been a little bit more reckless, but you know, I was trying to take my time, play it safe a little bit, and I had a lot of fun with it. And we've got another boss here. This time it is Frankenstein's creature. Right, and this fight was extremely easy, as you can tell. This was hilarious to me. I don't even think I took damage from that, or if I did, it barely registered. Because I just killed him so quick. It was hilarious. This holy water is so good in this game. It's crazy. Ah, yes, this zone. This is maybe my least favorite zone in the game. Not for design-wise or anything like that, but it is just really difficult. I found it to be really challenging, trying to move against the water and fight these fish. It was just a really rough time. I reloaded many times in here. And in the rest, throughout the rest of this zone, it was just a tough time. I did not enjoy it that much, but, I was also just kind of bad at it, It was not an easy zone for me, and it wasn't the fun kind of challenge like I usually like. Then this little reprieve area here without the water is decent, but yeah, the water pushing you back was kind of a tough time, as you'll see also in the next little room where we have water. It was just kind of rough, I can understand why it's designed that way and everything, but it was just really tough for me to get through. Of course, I cheese a little bit here by just turning into the bat and flying past everything as much as possible, which I was totally okay with, honestly. At least in this particular case. There's a couple of times where I use Alucard's bat form to kind of proceed through an area that is giving me trouble, or that I foresee to give me trouble, but I mean, hey, you got it at your disposal, you might as well use it, right? I mean, it's costing me hearts, but I've got plenty to spare, and just running right past this whole area here is kind of for me a smart choice. This little section right here took me a little bit of time, because I was not prepared for what is about to happen right here when the floor starts falling. But eventually I just decided to, hey, let's turn into the bat and do it one more time and just kind of cheese my way through a little bit. I think it was pretty cool that I took out that crow or whatever it was, that one enemy, as in the animation of transforming. That was pretty cool. I didn't expect that to happen, and I don't know that I could recreate it that easily, but it was pretty cool. And here we are on to one of my favorite boss fights, even though this one took me quite a while to get down properly. It was quite a lot of fun. I like the design on this, the two dragons, the two water dragons here. And I accidentally saved when I meant to reload, and I'm really glad I didn't end up in the water there after the save. But, it happens. But yeah, this fight was quite a lot of fun. I liked trying to figure out where I needed to be. It was like a weird game of whack-a-mole to some degree, but just trying to figure out where to go. I finally take the first dragon out there. It's pretty cool design, I like it. Not bad at all. Definitely one of my more favorite boss fights in this game. And time for another boss, this one being pretty much the same as that other one with the mummy and the Cyclops, but we get an extra boss to fight along with it. This was pretty cool. Again, you know, I just reused the same strat for the mummy and just pretty much instantly killed it, which was hilarious. And then the Cyclops again. This time he was just a little bit tougher. Not too bad, but it was, you know, trying to navigate the little room, the tiny little corner here that I have without taking damage. Just took me a little bit of time to kind of get used to. And there we go. And then for the final phase of this section, which was another pretty cool fight. I was not prepared for this. I did not know what to expect, but the Leviathan, I think is what this thing's called. Pretty cool. I took out as much of its health as I could with the holy water, sort of kind of cheesy strat, but you know, then it was just a matter of timing my jumps right to get under him. Pretty cool little fight. I enjoyed it. And here we are in the castle proper. That last level, I believe, was mostly the courtyard and kind of the outer, like, garden areas. And then, you know, all the other levels beforehand were kind of just the outer region around the castle, getting around that, which is pretty cool to see, you know, the zones outside of the castle. I like when we get to do that, when we get to explore a little bit farther out. But now that we're finally in the castle, we're, you know, closing in on the end of the game, getting closer to that. And this area, especially this sort of section right here, is one of the more iconic visual sections of the game for me in terms of the early Castlevania days, right? Even though, as I said before earlier, I didn't play this game when it first came out, the sort of visual design of this zone, especially with those curtains in that last room and the sort of stone wall, just is very, like, striking and stands out in the memory. You know, I might have seen pictures of those rooms, maybe in like a Nintendo Power or something. A shout out to anyone who remembers Nintendo Power, but yeah, I think back on the early days of this franchise and that room, that like opening room of the castle, which does often look similar, you know, even with visual updates in later games and stuff. It does usually kind of have a similar aesthetic, which I like. You know, I like the consistency, and I think it's like I said, it's a very visually striking kind of design, and I like it a lot. here we are coming to what I believe to be the toughest boss of this game. And for those of you who are familiar with the franchise, Death is usually one of the tougher bosses. I certainly had a hard time with this one. I spent a lot of time reloading saves from this in this fight. I think I spent more time in this fight than I did with just about any other section of the game. So that's why I cut a lot of the failed attempts out, because I just didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't look up the right strats or anything. I didn't try to look up what the best way to fight this guy was. I just kind of took it as it came to me and tried my best, and sure, I definitely could have done better. This was, like I said, a really tough fight. Could have done better. First phase now over. The first phase was very challenging. I think the second phase is a lot easier in general. It just feels like it just works better to me. It's less challenging, less punishing. Right, that first phase was very punishing with his scythes that just kind of go wherever and follow you around and stuff like that. That is very challenging. But for those of you who are used to the franchise, Death's usually the one of the more challenging bosses, as it should be, right? I enjoyed it. It was a very challenging fight, but not too frustrating, right? So sure, a little bit frustrating, but not overly so. Not to the point where it made me want to quit the game or anything like that. It was still a pretty good fight. I just didn't do that well with it personally because I didn't really know what I was doing, and I didn't feel like looking up the answers for that one. But yeah, Death is usually a pretty challenging fight. I mean, as you know, if you watch the previous game in the playthrough series here, the Lament of Innocence playthrough, Death in that game is quite a challenging fight, at least from my experience it was. And it's not the last time. This game is not the last time that Death will be a challenging boss. This was by no means not even the hardest, or among the hardest of fights against Death, There's a couple of times in the franchise where Death is a little bit easier. But we'll kind of talk about the really hard ones when we get to them. I have a lot of bad memories of the Rondo of Blood version of Death. That fight I remember being extra challenging for me. But yeah, I think it should be, right? Death should be a tough boss. Oh yeah, this section of the castle is pretty fun for me. I like the idea of what normally kind of looks like a background, a piece of the background playing a role in your platforming. It's pretty cool. It's kind of like the pendulums, right? I like the pendulums, even though they are sometimes a little finicky in some of these games. It's a little hard to line up your jump with where they're going to be and everything. Sometimes you miss. But I think they're pretty cool in this game, and same thing with those whatever the hell those were, the mashers or whatever that we just used. This is cool to use movable parts of the environment in the platforming. That's like earlier, a few levels ago, we had the sort of seesaw platforms that they kind of lower the end that you're on and raise the opposite end, like a scale. Very cool. I liked that aspect. Just nice little touches, especially for early games like this where that might have been a little bit of a more challenging thing for the dev team to do. I don't know. was certainly not something that was done a whole lot before this, you know? I mean, there were some games that did it, but usually you just kind of have static platforms and that was it. So when you have moments like that kind of break the norm and do something new and fresh, it's really, I think, really cool and nice to see, you know? Oh yes, this little area, this is what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about the water sections giving me trouble. This is the other one that gave me quite a lot of trouble. It's tough for me. I don't know. The pushback mechanic and then the fish are kind of challenging in this one for me to I don't know, get the timing right. So eventually I kind of got tired of dealing with that and skipped past it as much as I could. You know, I was just kind of tired of wasting my time on the same 2 or 3 fish and 2 or 3 birds. And here's the Medusa heads back in action. I just kind of wanted to get around that as quickly and efficiently as possible. But here, now we get to a boss fight that I thought was pretty cool. It wasn't super challenging, but the Doppelganger aspect is really cool. That was a really nice hit with the holy water there, hitting him mid-jump as he falls down. Very sick. Holy Water was great in this fight. I like when these games do the, like, doppelganger aspect, you know. We had, in the, Lament of Innocence, you know, we had the, like, Leon doppelganger that you had to fight, which is pretty cool, you know. It reminds me of when you fight, like, the Shadow Link or whatever it's called in Ocarina of Time, right? You have the, like, evil Shadow Link that that just mirrors all your movements, basically. I like the idea of that, right? It's a really cool, I think, a cool boss fight design choice, right? And the pendulums make a return one last time before the end of the game, which is pretty cool. I was talking about these earlier. Like I said, I like these. They're pretty cool little design things, you know. Again, sometimes you either don't make the jump quite far enough or you go too far or whatever. I almost didn't make that one, for instance. I was very lucky, but I like it as a design choice. Very cool. And here we come to the very end of the game. You know, it's always a good sign when you get to a screen that looks kind of like this. You know, with the stairs and going up into the sort of Dracula's like throne room. Always very cool. That is so iconic, right? Like, I mean, one of the most iconic aspects of the Castlevania franchise. Right. And with this fight in particular, I think this was a pretty cool Dracula fight, you know. Very good design. I liked the mechanics. I hit an accidental save there again. I do that a couple of times in this playthrough, but yeah, just kind of this idea of having these fire columns was neat and different, you know. It was not something from the first game that I remember anyway. Very cool design choice. And you know, this first phase is fairly straightforward, not too challenging. You just got to make sure you kind of pre-plan where the columns are going to be. The second phase is, I thought, really cool, having to destroy like different parts of them, right? Like that's very cool. And this is where the axe would have come in handy for sure. But I think I heard somewhere that it comes in even more handy in the final phase that's coming up here. Of course, I used the bat form to save myself a little bit here again, you know, and Alucard's attack, which obviously makes the game a little sluggish here in this particular case. But yeah, the bat form is very handy, I think, to just be able to get around. Even with as few hearts as I have at this point in the game, it just kind of works. You know, it's worth it, I think, to just be able to make sure that I survive getting under him whenever I have to do a whole other boss fight phase, and I'm at roughly half health, right? And the final phase that's coming up is a pretty good challenge too. It was a really good fight. There we go. And we hit the final phase, which, like I said, is honestly really cool. The design is very sick, and just the moving platforms is kind of a cool design choice. I decided to stick with Alucard here, and I hit an accidental save again because I was just, I don't know, being reckless or something, and didn't mean to. But, you know, like I was saying, this fight is really cool. The moving platforms was a neat choice. I stuck with Alucard here because he could hit farther out and in different directions than Trevor could hit. So I felt like it was kind of easier to stay with him. And then it just felt right also to, like, thematically to just stay as Alucard to fight Dracula, right? Like, to me, that just felt kind of perfect. And that was a good jump right there on my part, if I do say so myself. I was pretty proud of that. So make sure and save extra here because it was still a pretty challenging fight. And I had to reload the save a couple of times for sure. Not quite as many times as I did with Death, of course, but this fight still posed a pretty good challenge, so I saved often to make sure, you know, in case I messed up. But yeah, this is pretty cool, fairly straightforward. Don't have to worry too much about moving around the little platforms, you know, do a jump here and there. I did like whenever I happened to, like, jump into the next moving platform. It was a pretty nice feeling to do that. And there we go. That is the end of that. Such a fun game, honestly. I highly recommend it. I think that it is kind of a, you know, an iconic piece to the Castlevania story, to the franchise as a whole. You know, it is important story-wise. I can tell why the Netflix show adapted this game to be, you know, the first story that they go through. And as we read here, Trevor made many sacrifices. The long fight is over, Dracula is dead, so you think, and all other spirits are asleep. The battle was won by Trevor and Alucard, but Alucard feels guilty because he killed his real father. Trevor realizes this as he stands there thinking about Alucard. After this fight, the Belmont name shall be honored by all people, because if you remember, the game starts out, it doesn't really give you this information, but the society and especially the church had kind of shunned the Belmont family at this point. And so this was like the redemption arc for Trevor Belmont, right? He was getting the sort of redemption for his family. Very cool story. Really good game. You know, a lot of fun. You can beat it in one sitting. I beat it in one sitting. It's got a lot of cool moments, a lot of cool features. I might replay it again with a different guest character or something, take a couple of those extra alternate paths to see how things go. Not anytime soon, but, maybe one day if I feel like coming back to this game. That's basically what I plan to do, right? Very fun. And I hope you have enjoyed this playthrough. I have a little special secret surprise here at the end that you'll see coming up soon, so be sure and hang out for that. We have Curse of Darkness coming up next chronologically. I've already played through it. The playthrough was recorded quite a long time ago, but I made sure and kept the recording, and I'm editing it now. So, be prepared for that. Thank you all for watching, and I appreciate you all so much. Have a great day.